Did your world tilt a bit today? Not in that huge, dramatic, earthquake kind of way. It's more like that weird little shift when you notice a picture on the wall, one you've looked at for years, is suddenly, somehow, crooked. Your parent, mom, or dad, they just told you they found someone. They're happy. Maybe even in love. And as those words landed, a totally different feeling, something cold and sharp, settled right into your heart. It's a strange thing to wrap your head around, isn't it? How their newfound joy can feel. Well, like a fresh crack in your own foundation. Why is it that one person's happiness, especially someone you love so much, can feel like your own personal heartbreak? If that question's echoing in your soul, you're in the right place. And trust me, you're definitely not alone. I remember when my own mother, years after my father passed away, sat me down. Her hands were trembling a little as she held her teacup. She told me about David. A kind man, she said, someone who made her laugh again. I smiled. I said all the right things, you know? But inside, it was like a storm was raging. Such a confusing mix of wanting her to be happy and this deep, aching feeling that something precious, something about our family, our history, was being rewritten, or at least edited. It wasn't that I didn't want her to be happy. Of course, I did. But it was just so much more complicated than that. It felt a bit like a betrayal, not of her, but of a past I was still clinging to, a past where my father was everything. That day, I learned that adult children can grieve in ways we don't even have words for. We can feel joy for our parents and, at the exact same time, a profound sense of loss. It's messy. It's very real. And it's absolutely okay to admit that it hurts. So, let's talk about that hurt. Why does something that feels like it should be a celebration, a parent finding companionship, joy, a whole new chapter, sometimes feel like a door slamming shut right in our faces? The reasons are as complicated and unique as our families themselves, but there are definitely some common threads, these deep-seated emotions that a lot of us go through. First off, there are the old wounds. For many of us, a parent's new relationship doesn't just bring a new person into the mix, it digs up old ghosts. If your parents had a really tough divorce, this new love might stir up those old feelings of instability, of being caught in the middle, of the pain you felt as a kid. You might have thought those wounds had healed over, but this new development can pick at the scabs, making them tender and raw all over again. Or maybe you're an adult child of a widower or a widow. When a new partner comes along, it can feel like a second wave of grief. It might feel like the memory of your parent who passed is being watered down, or even worse, replaced. A really fierce, protective loyalty often springs up. How can they move on? You might find yourself whispering, even while another part of you knows they have every right to be happy. That parent who's gone holds such a sacred space, doesn't it? And the thought of someone else even stepping close to that space can feel almost sacrilegious. It's not that you want your living parent to be miserable, it's more that you're desperately trying to protect the sanctity of what was. Research actually shows that adult children, particularly of widowers, can really struggle when their father starts dating after their mother's passing. It can feel like a threat to her memory. Then there are the new fears, anxieties that pop up specifically because of this new situation. A huge one is the fear of displacement. Maybe you'd found a new rhythm with your single parent, gotten closer, shared more. Now, there's someone else in the picture. Will there still be room for you? Will your parents still have the same time, the same emotional energy for you and what's going on in your life? It's a pretty primal fear, this worry about being pushed to the side. You might see them spending more time with their new partner, maybe even the partner's family, and a cold dread can creep in, that fear of being replaced, of your family traditions being overwritten. Concerns about your family's identity and how it functions are also incredibly common. For decades, your family looked a certain way, operated a certain way. Even if it wasn't perfect, it was what you knew. This new person, this new relationship, completely changes that landscape. Holidays, family gatherings, even just casual phone calls, everything shifts. Who are we now? How do we make this work? It can feel like the family rulebook has been tossed out, and nobody gave you the new edition. And let's be honest, sometimes the fears are practical. You might worry about your parent. Are they being taken advantage of, financially or emotionally? Is this new person genuinely good for them, or are you seeing red flags that your love-struck parent is totally missing? This is especially true if the new partner is a lot younger, or if your parent seems to be changing in ways that just don't feel like them. It's a heavy weight to carry, wanting to protect your parent while also trying to respect their choices. Imagine Sarah. Her father, a widower for 5 years, recently introduced his new girlfriend, Susan. Sarah talks about feeling this confusing jumble of emotions. On one hand, her dad is smiling more, he's got more energy. But on the other hand, Susan now sits in her mom's chair at the dinner table. Susan's grandkids are now part of family photos. Sarah feels this pang of guilt for not being 100% happy for her dad, but she also feels this deep, unshakable sadness, a feeling that her mom is fading further into the background. She worries that if she says how she feels, her dad will see her as unsupportive. So, she stays quiet, and the unspoken things just fester. This is the silent battlefield a lot of adult children find themselves on. Hearing all this, you might be nodding along, thinking, yes, that's it. That's exactly how I feel. It's a heavy load, this whole tangle of grief, fear, loyalty, and confusion. So, what now? How do you cope when their happiness feels so tangled up with your heartbreak? How do you navigate this new, uncharted territory without losing yourself, or your relationship with your parent? This is where things can start to shift. It's the moment we say, okay, all these complicated feelings are real, but also decide that we don't want to stay stuck in them. It's about understanding that while your emotions are completely valid, they don't have to control the entire future of your relationship with your parent or your own peace of mind. This is where we move from just reacting to the pain, to actively looking for ways to manage it, to understand it, and maybe, just maybe, to find a new kind of balance. The truth is, you can't control your parents' choices. You can't tell them who to love or how to live their life, especially now that you're an adult. But what you can control is how you respond. You can learn to set healthy boundaries. You can find ways to talk about your feelings constructively. And you can work towards a place of acceptance, even if it's not the picture-perfect blended family ideal we sometimes see in movies. This isn't about pretending you're instantly okay with everything. It's not about bottling up your hurt or putting on a brave face if you're actually crumbling inside. It's about giving yourself the tools and new ways of looking at things so you can move through this challenging chapter with as much grace and self-compassion as possible. It's about shifting from feeling like a victim of circumstance to an empowered person who can navigate change, no matter how tough it is. Think of it like this, your family landscape has changed. You can't go back to the old map. But you can start to draw a new one that acknowledges the new features, identifies potential rough patches, and charts a course forward. It won't be easy, and there might be detours, but it absolutely is possible to find your footing again. So, let's get practical. What are some real, concrete things you can do to navigate this? Here are a few key approaches, based on understanding both your own emotional needs and the tricky nature of family dynamics. 1. Acknowledge and validate your feelings, all of them. This is huge. Before you can deal with anything on the outside, you have to get honest on the inside. It is okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Are you angry? Sad? Jealous? Confused? Maybe even a tiny bit relieved that your parent isn't lonely anymore, but still totally unsettled? All of these emotions are valid. Many experts will tell you it's perfectly fine to not immediately like or adore your parent's new partner. You don't have to fake it. Pushing these feelings down or beating yourself up for having them will only make things harder. Grab a journal and just pour it all out. Talk to a trusted friend who can listen without judging. Maybe even consider talking to a therapist who knows about family dynamics. Just the act of naming your emotions and accepting them as real is the first powerful step toward processing them. You might realize, for instance, that your anger is actually a shield for deep-seated grief over a deceased parent, grief that this new relationship has just stirred up again. Understanding where your emotion is coming from is key. 2. Communicate, but do it wisely. This is a bit of a delicate dance. On one hand, open communication is so important. If you bottle up your feelings, it can lead to resentment that just poisons relationships. On the other hand, how, when, and what you communicate matters a whole lot. Pick a calm moment to talk to your parent, not when emotions are already sky high. Speak from your own experience, using I statements. For example, instead of blurting out, "You're forgetting Dad by being with this new person." Try something like, "I'm finding it really hard to see you with someone new because I'm still grieving Dad, and it brings up a lot of sadness for me." This is about sharing your feelings, not making accusations or demands. Listen to your parents' side of things too. They have their own needs and feelings. They might be lonely, looking for companionship, or genuinely in love. Try to understand where they're coming from, even if you don't completely agree with it. It's also really important to set healthy boundaries. What are you comfortable with? What feels like too much, too soon? Maybe you're not ready for big family gatherings that include the new partner, but you'd be okay with a quiet coffee. It's okay to state these boundaries respectfully. For instance, Mom, I'm so glad you're happy, and I'm willing to get to know, but I'm not quite ready for them to join our traditional holiday dinner just yet. Could we perhaps find another way for me to spend time with them separately for now? Clear boundaries protect your emotional well-being and can actually stop bigger fights from happening later on. Remember, as an adult, you can disagree with your parents' choices while still respecting their right to make them. 3. Redefine your relationship with your parent. Change is bound to happen in any long-term relationship, and the parent-adult-child relationship is no different. This new chapter for your parent is also a new chapter for your relationship with them. It will change, and trying to resist that change completely is often just a recipe for frustration. Recognize that your parent may have new boundaries, just like you're allowed to have yours. Their time and attention might be divided differently now. This doesn't automatically mean they love you less, it just means their life has expanded. This is a chance to build a more adult-to-adult connection. It might mean letting go of some of the ways you used to relate when you were younger, or when they were your main focus after a loss. Work together, if you can, to create a new dynamic that honors both your independence and your lasting connection. This might involve scheduling some dedicated one-on-one time with your parent, making sure that your core relationship isn't completely swallowed up by the new one. 4. Focus on what you can control. This is a big one for building resilience. You cannot control your parents' feelings for their new partner. You cannot control the partner's personality or their past. You cannot force your parent to end the relationship, nor should you try, unless there are real safety concerns. What can you control? Your reactions. Your choices. How you spend your time. The boundaries you set. Your own efforts to find peace with the situation. Putting your energy into these areas is empowering. Wasting energy trying to change things you can't control just leads to frustration and feeling helpless. If you find yourself constantly stewing over things you can't change, gently try to redirect your thoughts to what you can influence, your own coping strategies and your own well-being. 5. Make room, gradually and on your own terms. This is often the hardest part, especially if your feelings are still really raw. But if the relationship looks like it's going to be a long-term thing, finding some way to accept your parent's new partner is important for your own peace and for keeping your relationship with your parent going. This doesn't mean you have to become best friends overnight, or ever. It doesn't mean you have to betray the memory of another parent. It simply means approaching the new person with a bit of openness, when you feel ready. Give yourself, and them, time. Relationships build slowly. Try to find some low-key, neutral ways to interact at first. Maybe a casual coffee, or joining them for an activity that isn't emotionally loaded. Observe. Listen. Try to see them as a person, separate from the role they now have in your family structure. Sometimes, our worst fears about someone are based on assumptions, not reality. It can also be helpful to keep up traditions or activities you've always enjoyed with your parent, just the two of you, while also being open to creating some new, small traditions that might include the partner when and if you feel comfortable. This balance can reassure you that your bond with your parent is still there, even as the family circle gets wider. While the strategies we've talked about offer a good general framework, some situations just come with their own unique set of complications. It's important to acknowledge these. When grief is still fresh. If your other parent has passed away, and the grief still feels like an open wound, your parent starting a new relationship can feel especially jarring, even if a good amount of time has passed. That sense of loss can come flooding back with overwhelming intensity. In this situation, it's so important to communicate your ongoing grief to your parent. You might say something like, "Dad, I know you're finding happiness with, and a part of me is glad for you. But I also need you to understand that I'm still deeply grieving, Mom, and seeing you with someone new is bringing all that pain to the surface again. It's about my own process with Mom." You can ask for patience and understanding as you navigate these emotions. This isn't about demanding they end their relationship, but about asking them to acknowledge your pain. And, importantly, if the grief feels like it's paralyzing you, consider looking into grief counseling. A professional can offer a safe space for you to work through these complex feelings without making your parents solely responsible for how you feel. Remember that moving forward doesn't mean they've forgotten, and your grief doesn't mean you're unsupportive. Everyone grieves at their own pace. When you have legitimate concerns. Sometimes, your distress isn't just about your own emotional adjustment, it's rooted in genuine, valid concerns about your parent's new partner or the relationship itself. Maybe you've seen manipulative behavior, financial weirdness, or signs that your parent is being isolated or controlled. These aren't just hurt feelings, these are potential red flags. If this is the case, it's important to address these concerns, but to do so carefully. Focus on specific behaviors rather than making broad, judgmental statements about the new partner's character. For example, instead of saying, "I think your new partner is a gold digger," you could try, "Dad, I've noticed that since you started seeing, you've made several large financial decisions that seem unusual for you, and it worries me. Can we talk about that?" Share your concerns from a place of love and genuine care for your parents' well-being, not from a desire to control their life. If the situation is complex or feels beyond your ability to handle, you might consider suggesting family therapy. A neutral third party can help make difficult conversations easier and address problematic dynamics. Make sure your parent knows you're looking out for their safety and happiness. When estrangement looms or occurs. In the toughest situations, a parent's new relationship can become the thing that leads to estrangement, or it can make existing rifts even wider. Maybe the new partner actively creates conflict, or your parent is unwilling or unable to acknowledge your feelings or respect your boundaries, leading to a painful distancing. Sometimes parents, caught up in a new romance, might not realize the impact on their adult children, or may even pull away if they feel criticized. If you find yourself in a situation where contact becomes very limited, or stops altogether, it's an incredibly painful experience. It's so important to acknowledge the grief and loss that comes with this kind of family rupture. Think about whether reconciliation is possible and, more importantly, whether it would be healthy for you. Sometimes, keeping your distance is a necessary act of self-preservation. If you do want to try and bridge the gap, setting very clear boundaries about what kind of relationship you can and cannot maintain will be vital. In these deeply painful scenarios, seeking professional support for yourself is something I'd highly recommend. A therapist can help you process your feelings of grief, anger, and abandonment, and help you figure out the healthiest path forward, whether that involves trying to repair things or coming to terms with the estrangement. Remember, your well-being matters. It's easy to get lost in the pain and complexity of it all, to feel like this new reality is just too much to handle. But it's important to remember that growth and a new kind of peace are possible, even if it doesn't look like the fairy tale one big happy family we sometimes imagine. Consider the story of Mark. His mother remarried a few years after his father's death. At first, Mark was resistant, almost hostile. He felt like his father was being erased. His stepfather, Tom, was a quiet, gentle man, but Mark kept him at arm's length. Family dinners were tense. Mark would find reasons to leave early, to avoid interacting. His mother was stuck in the middle, feeling torn and unhappy. One day, Mark's mother sat him down. She didn't get angry. She simply said, "Mark, I loved your father with all my heart. And I always will. Tom doesn't replace him. He fills a different space, a space of companionship that I need now. I miss your father every day. But I also deserve to not be lonely. I'm asking you to try, not for Tom's sake, or even entirely for mine, but for your own, so you don't carry this bitterness." It wasn't an instant fix. But her words planted a seed. Mark started to observe Tom more, to have small, hesitant conversations. He learned Tom was also a widower. He learned Tom loved woodworking, just like his own father had. Slowly, very slowly, Mark began to see Tom not as a replacement, but as an addition. He realized that accepting Tom didn't make his love or memory of his father any less. It just meant his mother's life, and by extension, the family, was evolving. The relationship isn't perfect. There are still moments of awkwardness, moments where the ghost of his father feels very present. But Mark and Tom have found a quiet respect for each other. Mark can now see his mother laugh freely with Tom, and while a small part of him might always feel a pang for what was, a larger part feels a sense of peace that she's not alone. He learned that acceptance isn't about forgetting the past, but about making space for a new present. It was a journey of many small steps, of choosing understanding over resentment, little by little. He found a new dynamic that honored both his connection to his mother and his own emotional needs. Navigating a parent's new love when you're an adult child is, hands down, one of the more complex emotional journeys we can face. It's a path often scattered with reopened grief, unexpected fears, and a profound sense of shifting family sands. There's no magic wand to make all the difficult feelings just disappear, no one-size-fits-all solution here. What I really hope you take away from our chat today is that your feelings are profoundly normal and valid. Whether it's sadness, anger, confusion, or just a tangled mess of everything all at once, you have every right to feel it. The key is not to let those feelings dig you into a trench of bitterness or permanently damage your relationship with your parent, especially if that's a relationship you really value. Healing, adjustment, acceptance, these things take time. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your parent, too, as they're also navigating a new chapter, perhaps with their own set of worries about how it will affect their children. Some days will be harder than others. There will be moments you get it, and moments of total frustration. That's all just part of the process. Remember the strategies we talked about: acknowledge your emotions, communicate thoughtfully and respectfully, redefine relationships where you need to, focus on what you can actually control, and allow space, slowly, for new dynamics to form. You are not powerless in this situation. You have a say in how you respond, in the boundaries you set, and in the path you choose towards your own peace of mind. This journey is about finding a way to honor your past, your memories, and your own emotional needs, while also giving your parent the grace to chase their own happiness. It's a delicate balance, for sure, but not an impossible one. Your parent finding new love doesn't erase the love they have for you, nor does it diminish the family history you share. It's an expansion, a new layer, and like all big life changes, it requires adjustment from everyone involved. This is a conversation that so many of us are having, often in silence. If this resonated with you, if you've walked this path or are walking it right now, I'd love for you to share your experiences or questions in the comments below. What has helped you? What are you struggling with? Creating a community around these shared experiences can be so validating and supportive. You are not alone in this. And remember, reaching out for support, whether it's from friends, family, or a professional, is a sign of strength, not weakness. Thanks so much for listening.